Okay, welcome everybody. I want to make a special welcome back to Brindy Hershkowitz, who came back this week. We missed you very, very much.
The biggest effort to come.
Yes. Everybody makes an effort to come, but with all due respect, it doesn't compare to Brindy's effort, and we know how much toil and sacrifice and commitment and work it takes, but I just want to tell you, I hope it's worth it for you, but it certainly, you radiate and emanate light to the entire shir, to the entire class. So thank you very much for gracing us with your special presence. It means so much. When you come, you fill the room with light. So thank you for making the effort. We know it's not easy for you to come, and thank you everybody else for gracing us with your presence. Thank you so much. And to also welcome to all those who are here virtually. Today's class is dedicated in loving memory and eternal tribute and Le'elu Nishmas Rabbi Mordechai Shaul Binyaminson, Reb Mordechai Shaul ben Reb Nachum Yosef, who passed away last week. He was a very holy and righteous individual, known for his unwavering emunah and bitachon in Hashem. His life was a testament to his deep connection with Torah and Chesed, never seeing without either never seeing not learning or helping somebody in need. He lived in Sderot, southern Israel at the border of Gaza, with remarkable courage, steadfastly refusing to leave even during the challenges of war, embodying true self-sacrifice and a life of dedication to Hashem and His people. May his memory inspire and elevate us all, and to his family who just got up from Shiva, Hamakam Yanachem Eschem, B'Seich Shar Vayeitzei V'Yerushalayim, and may his soul be an eternal source of light and inspiration. Tahenish Masay Tzura B'Tzur HaChaim. To all of you and to all of us, La'arichis Yamim V'Shanim Tovos, and we should see already the fulfillment of Heikitza V'Rananu, Sheichne Afar V'Hu B'Seicham. Amen. In Chumash, generally, there are no stories that are just told, to fill in gaps or to give just a description of a situation without a very specific, meaningful lesson and purpose. In Parshas Vayeitzei, there's a whole section that, at first glance, the commentators struggle with this. What is its meaning? What is its purpose? What is its significance? It's a very beautiful story, and it actually comes in the midst of two very tumultuous stories. And in that sense, it's a little bit of a respite. It's a little bit of what you would call a relaxer. When you're reading a very, very intense story, and so sandwiched sometimes between the two extremes, you take the reader on a more serene journey, on a more tranquil cruise between tumultuous waters. It's like if you're flying and it's a tumultuous flight, you wait for those moments where you could just fall asleep in your chair or continue reading the book without feeling that, life is so dangerous. So the end of Parshas told us, much of Parshas told us, but towards the end, there's a very tumultuous story about the blessings that Yitzchak wants to give Esav, and Rivka asks Yaakov to go and take those blessings from her husband, bringing him food, dressing him up in the cloaks of Esav. It's a very, very intense story. There's a lot of anxiety, anticipation. You don't know what's coming. Even every year when you read it and you do know what's coming, there's still anxiety. Like, is this going to work? How is this supposed to work? How is this supposed to happen? Some stories, it's very, very it's a very intense story. And then, Yaakov pulls it off. We don't know how he pulls it off because Yitzchak keeps on asking who he is. So that's a separate shir. We discussed some of it in previous years. But Yaakov pulls it off, and Esav is obviously deeply, deeply upset. It's one of the few times in Chumash where we see a display of such emotion, graphic emotion of Esav sobbing and weeping. And it's very hard not to empathize with the grief of Esav, who just was expecting an intimate moment with his father and profound blessings, and it was taken from him. He wants to kill Yaakov. He's waiting for Yitzchak's death, and he's going to kill Yaakov, and Rivka then devises a plan to separate the brothers and sends her son away which will be a long journey that will last for 22 years. So that's how Toldus ends. And Vayeitzei begins with Yaakov escaping from Be'er-Sheva, and he goes to this new place called Haran, actually his mother's birthplace, which we still know the place today. If you go today to northern Iraq, South Turkey, southern Turkey, northern Iraq, it's a place called southern Turkey, a place called Haran, H-R-R-A-N. It's an actually excavated place also, so it's the ancient city of Haran, which they call Haran, and this is where Yaakov runs to. The rest of Vayeitzei is also going to be a very anxious portion, because it's all about Yaakov's relationship with Lavan. From his relationship with Esav, we now turn to his relationship with Lavan, which is a very complicated relationship. At the end, Yaakov has an outburst at the end of Parshas Vayeitzei towards Lavan, and he describes to him how much he suffered under this father-in-law. You know, when you're living under a father-in-law, I don't mean any one of you, but somebody living under a father for 20 years, and it's tyranny, and it's challenging, and finally, after 20 years, he's not quiet anymore. And Yaakov gives one of the most powerful speeches in Tanakh, telling Lavan exactly who he is, and what working for him looks like. It's a real powerful therapy session. And it's a very intense parsha. First of all, he's deceived with his marriage. He's deceived with his wages. He's guilted for everything and responsible for everything. There's deception after deception. Yaakov says that your father he tells his wives that your father Lavan has deceived me 100 times, 10 times 10. Everything he promised, he then outsmarted me and was sly and shrewd about it. So it's also very intense. So you have told us that's extremely intense. Yaakov and Esav, and Vayeitzei, Yaakov and Lavan, and everything that happens. In between, there's a journey. And here we have, for a few minutes, a calm scene. Pastoral, it's nice, it's tranquil. We have an image of a well, so that always excites people. We have sheep. Whenever there's sheep, people are relaxed, because sheep are relaxed animals. There's shepherds sitting in one place. Meloifnish, megaitnish, mahaknish, meshreitnish. Nobody's running, nobody's screaming, nobody's hollering, nobody's fighting, nobody's killing each other, nobody's hating each other, nobody's cursing each other, which for the Bible is a pretty good thing. You know, it's not what we expect. You know, portion after portion of rivalry and rivalry and rivalry. It starts with two brothers, one of them killing the other one, and then, you know, goes on and on and on. And here you have a few moments of what you would call serenity. And I even saw somebody once wrote, the Torah simply wants to give the readers a break. Like, just enjoy yourself for a few minutes, you know, because there's a lot of action coming. This flight is going to get very tumultuous, you know. Drink your wine. Hopefully you'll fall asleep by the time we come to the next part. But as it's now, you know, enjoy it. I told you when somebody once defined consciousness as the annoying time between naps. So here is the little nap that you can take. That's one way of looking at it, more from, I would say, you know, it's cute, it's charming, it just doesn't fit with the genre of Chumash. Genre of Chumash. You have to know the genre of every sefer, certainly the book of books. So let's see the actual story. It's Genesis chapter 29. Bereshis Perek Chavtes, Vayeitzei Chavtes Pasuk Aleph. So Yaakov's escape finished. He had his beautiful dream, also a very interesting dream. But over there, God promised, Hashem promised, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to watch you. You're going to come back one day. And Vayeitzei Yaakov Raglo Vayelech Artza B'nei Kedem. It's the first source in your source sheets. Yaakov lifts up his feet. And Rashi says that this is actually a very unique expression. Obviously, in order to walk, you have to lift up your legs. But Rashi says it means not just physically, but he lifts up his legs. There's a simcha, there's a joy. You know, somebody's going somewhere with enthusiasm, with passion. When you hear good news and your heart expands, your movements are different. The way you walk, your gait is different. Yaakov lifts up his legs. He's not walking in a sluggish, lethargic fashion, but rather with alacrity and enthusiasm and joy. Vayelech Artza B'nei Kedem, and he's going to the east. Kedem is the east, because of course, he's heading from the land of Israel. He's heading towards the direction of Turkey and Iraq, Mesopotamia, as they called it, Mesopotamia, Haran, his mother's birthplace, where Avram Avinu yet came from, and that's why his mother's family was from there. And that's where he heads. And now is a scene. Vayar, he sees, Vihine be'er basada. There is a well in the field. In one of the fields, there's a well. A well, of course, means a space where there was a spring of water, a subterranean spring of water, which was and remains a timeless source of vitality. Remember, before the times when, before the Industrial Revolution, and you have a sink in your house, the source of water for everybody were the springs, the wells. And that's why the wells were places that people would come to and meet. In fact, we have 3 major shidduchim in Chumash, 3 major matches that all happen at wells. Eliezer meets Rivka at a well. Moshe Rabbeinu meets Tzipora at a well. And here too we'll have that story as well. Yaakov will meet his soulmate as a well. So he sees a well in the field. And there are 3 herds, edrei are herds, groups of flock, sheep, goats, that are all crouching right near the well, on top of the well, near the well. And why? They're not just there for no reason. It's this well from where all these sheep, all these herds of sheep will be irrigated. They will be hydrated. They will drink. But on the mouth of the well, there's a huge boulder. There's a huge rock. And now we hear about the custom. All the adarim, all the herds, all the groups of sheep come there with their shepherds. And together they roll off the boulder, they roll off the stone from the mouth of the well. They irrigate, they hydrate, they give to drink. Hishku is like mashka, drink. They give water to their flock. And then together they restore, they return the stone back to its place on top of the well. And this is where Yaakov ends up. So as he's escaping the land of Israel, he's on the way to Haran in the field. Outside of Haran, he sees this well, and here we have a description of what it looks like, and that there are 3 groups, there are 3 units, 3 herds of sheep with their shepherds, and we understand why, because there's a rock and there's a well, and they're waiting for everybody to come and take off the stone and give them to drink and then put back the stone. Yaakov, and Yaakov starts speaking to these strangers, to these shepherds, and he says, Achem, my brothers, me'ayinatem, where are you from? And they say, Mecharan anachnu, we come from the city Haran. Obviously, it's not that far away. So he says to them, do you know a man living in Haran? His name is Lavan. He's the son of Nachar. Actually, Nachar was his grandfather. It's interesting because Lavan's father was Rivka's brother. And Lavan's father was a man named Besuel. We learned that in Parshas Chayesara and in Parshas Vayera. Besuel's father was Nachar. And of course, Nachar was a brother of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu had 2 brothers, Nachar and Haran. So Nachar, Avram's nephew, was Besuel, and Lavan was a child of Besuel, as was Rivka. But he calls Lavan, he names him by his grandfather, Ben Nachar. Why that is, it's an interesting question. You know, some people say because he was very prominent, so he thought maybe he'll know Nachar, or maybe other reasons. Vayomru, and they say, Yadanu, we know him. We know who he is. Vayomru lahem, so he says to them, Hashalom lai, how is he doing? How is Lavan doing? Is he at peace? Does he have peace? Hashalom lo. Vayomru, they say, Shalom, all is well. All is well on the western front. This is all is well on the eastern front. All is well in Lavan's life. Is at peace. Vihine, behold, in the middle of the conversation, Rachel bitoi ba'e matzayin. Rachel, Lavan's daughter, who was a shepherd for her father, is approaching with her father's sheep. She's approaching as Yaakov is having this conversation. You see what I mean? How it's a relaxing scene in the midst of a lot of tumultuous scenes. Now he starts having another conversation with them. He says, I don't understand. The day is still big. There's still a long day ahead of you. Yom Gadol means it's still a big day. It's not sunset yet. You have a long day ahead of you. It's not time to bring in the sheep back to their stables, back to their corrals, back to their homes. They're still out there. Hashku atzayin. Give them some water, and go graze with them. Why are you guys sitting here and crouching? What is this, a bunch of couch potatoes? What are you doing here? You know, what are you doing here? It's still a long day. If it would be evening, it's time to bring the sheep back home. They have to rest. They need to go to sleep. They're only out in light when it's light, as we know. However, it's still a long day. Give them to drink. I understand you're here. They need a drink. And then go. Go out and graze. Vayomru, they say to him, Lo nuchal, we can't. We need to wait for all of the flock to come, all of the herds to come. Why? Because together we can roll over the boulder. And then we can give our sheep some water. So that's why they're here. He's still talking to them. And now Rachel is actually approaching. Before we learned that she was on the way, now she approaches with the flock of her father because she was a shepherd. She was shepherding the flock. Vayihi, and it happens. Kashera Yaakov is Rachel bas Lavan achi imay. Yaakov sees Rachel. Who is Rachel? Rachel is the daughter of Lavan, the brother of his mother. In other words, Rachel is his cousin, first cousin, because his mother and her father are siblings. And then he sees all this flock, all the sheep or the goats or the animals of the domesticated animals of Lavan, the brother of his mother. Vayigash Yaakov approaches. Vayogal se'even malpia be'er. He rolls off the boulder from the well. Vayashke son Lavan achi imoy, and he irrigates the flock of Lavan, the brother of his mother. And then the Torah, of course, says, Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel. Yaakov kisses Rachel, he sobs, he starts to sob, and then he goes home to he goes to Lavan's house, and that's where their connection actually begins. Lavan keeps him there in the house, and then says, "What are you going to serve me forever, free? Tell me what your wage is. Let's start working." And Yaakov begins to become the shepherd of Lavan, and that's when he makes a deal that he's going to work 7 years in lieu of marrying Rachel, and the chaos begins. So they said, here you have like this little break. And the Mefarshim say, what's the point of this whole story? I mean, it's very nice. You get to know what the Mesopotamian shepherds did. It's an interesting conversation between them. Again, it's certainly a moment of calm, what they called an oasis of calm in a storm. It's a moment of tranquility and relaxation. But what's the point of this whole story? You want to say that he met Rachel at the well? Okay, you could say he met Rachel at the well. It's an introduction to him coming to Lavan. The main point is he came to Lavan and the rest of the story. So obviously the Torah is trying to teach us something here. There's something here in this narrative. As I said, in other books, Lahavdil, you would say it's just, a little scenery, a little serenity. You'll get to the action in the next chapter. Don't worry. It won't get boring. But in Chumash, we don't have these narratives usually. When you have such a narrative, it's in order to explain a story. There's a message. It's a blueprint for life. It's a roadmap. Not that there's anything wrong with telling a relaxing story, but there's a message. There's a lesson here. What is it? And it's a pretty intricate and detailed story. I just want to... Is that a Chumash? I'm just going to get a Chumash. I want to get a blue chumash in the back. They have a blue chumash. I just want to look up a Rashi. Thank you. A großen Dank. Thank you. The Ramban, if you take a look in your next source, the Ramban, Nachmanides, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, he addresses this and he says, Yarich HaKosuv b'sipur hazeh. Why does the Torah elaborate on this narrative? Why is it relevant? To teach us, and he quotes a famous verse, those who hope in God know how to exchange their strength. Meaning, even when they're depleted, somehow they get a new dosage of energy and passion, and they replenish their energy. V'yirasoi titein ois. How the awe of God gives strength, confidence, power to people. Yaakov was on a long journey. He's exhausted. He hasn't slept in a bed who knows how long. This was a long journey, a long voyage from home all the way here to Haran. Remember, he's coming from the south of Eretz Yisrael all the way to the north and then east, Turkey, Iraq. It's a very long journey. He's tired. And he himself removes the boulder. Really, you needed all the shepherds. You see, there were already 3 herds of sheep. 3 herds, a huge group of sheep. And they were waiting for others to come. That means you needed a lot of shepherds and all the protectors. Everybody needed to come in order to remove the boulder. Until then, they couldn't move it. That's why they were all there, as I explained to him. And he himself comes and does it. He should have been exhausted, depleted. All he wants is to go to sleep. And yet you see he's alive. He's full of passion. He's full of vitality. He's full of enthusiasm. We already see how he walks. He lifted up his legs. So this shows he's never passive. He's not a victim. He is not just depleted. There's an energy that he lives with. There's an inner vitality. So the Ramban is telling you that's the message of the story. The message of the story that when somebody is aligned with the source of life, Koivei Hashem, Yachlifu Koyach, they're alive. That's the Ramban's message here in the story. The Sefarno, Rabbeinu Avadia Sefarno, he has another approach. He says the next source. Hein oid hayom gadol. According to the Ramban, we're still left wondering, why is it necessary to tell us about his conversation with them, telling them, what are you staying here? You should go shepherd. It says, Hatzadik yimas es ha'avel. A tzaddik, a righteous, a good person, detests injustice. Avel means iniquity, injustice, corruption. Gam kein eitzel el ha'cherim. Even if it's other people, it's nothing to do with him, it's not his family, it's not his community, it's not affecting him, nobody's taking anything from him. But when there's something in the world that's wrong, it bothers him. As it says, Toyavas tzadikim ish avel. Someone who behaves in a corrupt fashion. Avel means in the word evil is avel, evil. Somebody who behaves in an immoral, corrupt fashion, it's toyeva, it's disgusting, it's repulsive, it's abominable for the good person. So that's the Sefarno's message. That's what the Torah wants to say. Yaakov mixed into other people's business. He told them what he felt was wrong. They're shepherds, they're being paid. The flock needed to be taken care of. Why are they sitting around there? Then they explained to him what they're doing. But that's the message of the story. It's none of Yaakov's business, you would think. You're on a road, go to your destination. Your mother sent you to get married, not to tell shepherds how to live. What are you being a classic Jew and mixing into other people's business? And the Sefarno says, good people mix into business when they see that something wrong is happening, even if it seems minor and it's not relevant to me, and what do I have to mix in? Because right is right, wrong is wrong, justice is justice, and injustice is injustice. The Sefarno didn't even think that people can watch corruption in their own community and family and be quiet. That he didn't even think about. He thought about the Chiddush is that even in other places, it's not his area still. Yaakov Avinu is sensitive to this. The Ramban and the Sefarno's messages are obviously beautiful, and if we take, and each one contains a pivotal and a very timeless gem, of course, but still one wonders, are all the details so necessary? It seems like the Torah wants us to know all the aspects of the story here, and specifically with the well and the stone. So the Sefarno says, yeah, this is the context to which you understand that Yaakov was telling them what he felt was wrong, and Yaakov, we see a demonstration of his strength and power. But let's now get into one specific element of this story here. The Sefarno says a tzaddik mixes in when he sees injustice. He doesn't just say it's none of my business. We are stewards of God's planet. We're responsible for what happens in our environment. I can't just close my eyes and say, it's not my family, it's not affecting my bank account, it's not affecting my well-being, I'm going to be quiet. Yeah, somebody once said that evil triumphs not only because evil people do evil things, it's from good people who say nothing and are indifferent. People who are quiet. So Yaakov tells them something, but what does he tell them? He tells them, it's still a long day. Why are you here? They need water? Fine, give them water and go back. Go grazing with them. They need to walk around. They need to move around. Sheep need exercise. Even people need exercise. Move around with them. Why are you all here in one place? It's not the right thing. Rashi explains this, and Rashi says that he said, I don't understand. If you are employees, you work for somebody, you're hired shepherds, then you didn't finish your job. Why are you sitting here? You have a job to do. You weren't hired to sit in one place. You were hired to graze with these sheep. If you're going to say, it's our own animals, we're not working for anybody, still, the animals need it. Even if it's your own animals, go graze. And this is what they explained. Whether it's their own animals or they're hired, but the bottom line is they can't remove the rock. So they have to stay till the others come, and then they're going to go back to work. But they're not being lazy, they're not being apathetic, they're not being disloyal, they're not deceiving their bosses, they're putting in a full days of work. However, they need to take this break in order to get the rock off. Now let's think about it from a practical perspective for a moment. Okay. If you are traveling, I don't know, maybe you're driving through Manhattan or anywhere else, and there's a construction team. They're putting up some building, and you see a group of guys, and they're taking a break over there. They're drinking diet Pepsi. Somebody's smoking a cigarette. They're sitting on the ground, dressed in gear. You go over to them and you say, I don't understand. You're a bunch of ganavim here? Who gives you a right? You work for the city, you work for this person. Why are you sitting here? I don't understand. There's a long day. Go back to work. What's going on? Right? So most people won't do it because the response, if they're very, very warm and hospitable and kind people, they'll just look at you and like, get a life. And if they're not so kind, the response may be a little more aggressive or intense. I'm not going to say violent, but maybe verbally violent. Nonetheless, Yaakov, like in Yiddish, there's an expression that your grandmother would use. Wer hat dir gebeten? Who asked you? Like, who asked you? So the Sefarno says, yeah, that's what you do. You mix into other people's business. The truth is, they were right. They needed to give water to their sheep. They couldn't graze. So Yaakov was asking. But Yaakov right away says, what are you doing? Hey, no, I am God, he's telling them what to do. And what's interesting is, instead of looking at him and like, where did you fall in from? We're here for 60 years. We're doing this for 60 years. 60 years, predictable. I don't know, 60, whatever it was. Like, who are you? Where did you come from? What do you want? Stop telling us what to do, how to run our lives. Will we work for you? They actually respond very calmly, and they share with him exactly what's happening. Instead of saying, none of your business, they say, Lo nuchel, we can't. You're right, but we can't. And that's when Rachel approaches. It's very interesting how Yaakov gets away with this, and this is what the Torah is part of the story here. So there were two contemporaries who lived in our generation, and I saw they both comment on the same idea very beautifully. One was the Panovich Rav. The Panovich Rav, Panovich is a city in Lithuania. The Panovich Rav was a man named Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahanman. His family was killed in the war, but he was fundraising. So he was in London and he was saved with some of his family. His wife and little kids were murdered by the Nazis, and he established a lot of the institutions of Torah and Chesed and Bnei Brak were established by the Panovich Rav. He moved to Bnei Brak, Rav Kanman. He passed away in 1969. And then there was the famed Rosh Hashiva of Torah Vadas, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, who lived in Monsey also for many years. He has a sefer called Emes LeYaakov, and they both point out a very similar idea. And they say the reason Yaakov got away with it was, look at his opening word to them. What's his opening word? Very strange. Vayomer lahem Yaakov, what's his opening word? Achai, my brothers. My brothers. They weren't his brothers. He didn't know them. They didn't know him. He never lived in Haran. He was born to Yitzchak and Rivka in the Holy Land. They weren't their brothers. They weren't friends. They weren't relatives. They were complete strangers. This was his first word. Before he said anything, he said, Achai, my brothers. You see in the source, Achai, my brothers, before even where you're from, my brothers. The moment he said, my brothers, everything was different. When he said, my brothers, it wasn't just a cute, nice, charming way. It was a feeling that he exuded. Achai, a brother, represents we're connected. In fact, the word ach or achot in Hebrew means connection, knotting. Ichui is called a knot. We're connected. We're brothers. The moment he said that, even though later he would criticize them, they were very calm. Because that's always the key. Whenever I'm going to say something to somebody and I may challenge them, if they don't feel that I experience them as someone close to me, who I care for, the criticism will at best be useless. At worst, it will be actually counterproductive and create more distance and even more negative behavior. So that's the opening words of Yaakov. Achai, my brothers. That's the code word. Once you said that, you can get away with murder. I'm just joking, not with murder, but it's just an expression. You can get away with saying intense things, including challenging them when you don't even know how they live. They're good. And the reason is because people deep down want to grow. They want to be challenged. But we have defense mechanisms. I'm threatened. Who's saying it? What do you mean? So we protect ourselves. We put on a bulletproof vest. We put on protective gear. But Yaakov melted that resistance. And when he could melt that resistance, and it came because of how he was, the person he was, and he has also been through a lot. So when he said that, now he could talk. And this is an interesting thing because we see, there's a mitzvah, everybody knows a mitzvah, you should rebuke your fellow in Parshas Kedoshim. So many people think that the mitzvah is that if you see somebody doing something wrong, you have to rebuke them. You have to tell them you're doing something wrong. When I go sometimes to the Shabbatons of Kesher Nafshi, dealing with parents who have children struggling, one of the big questions that comes up a lot, especially fathers, good fathers, they're like, I have a mitzvah teichecha. If you see your son or daughter doing something wrong, you have a mitzvah in the Torah to rebuke them. It's a mitzvah. Like, what do you want me not to do a mitzvah? Very good question, innocent question. I need to rebuke them. I need to give musar. I need to tell them this is wrong. So the truth is, and this is what Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky explained, that we have to understand what this mitzvah is. When the Rambam writes this mitzvah, it's Rambam Hilchas Deis, chapter Perek Vav, chapter 6, the Rambam defines every mitzvah. So you would think he would say, there's a mitzvah in Torah, lahichiach, to rebuke a fellow Jew who's doing something wrong or saying something wrong. I have a mitzvah, yes, to rebuke. You should do it nicely and respectfully and not embarrass them, but I have to rebuke. I can't just be quiet. So you would think that's what the Rambam would say. It's a mitzvah to rebuke your fellow Jew. It's not how he says it. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah to help your fellow come back to a path of goodness. That's the mitzvah. So now the question is, if that's the mitzvah, what happens if by saying something, I'll actually distance you from the path of goodness? Then the mitzvah is, shh. The mitzvah is to be quiet. The mitzvah is not to rebuke. The mitzvah is to help the person find their soul, to help their person in their life. Sometimes that means silence. Sometimes that means much more attachment, much more connection, much more love. It's not a mitzvah to rebuke. It's a mitzvah to help another person. How to help the other person? That you have to know. You have to be emotionally in tune. What is the best way to create attachment, to create connection? With this, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky explains something very interesting. The Gemara says in Tractate Erkin, page 16, how long do you have to rebuke somebody? Let's say I see somebody speaking Lashon Hara, speaking gossip, or doing something else that's wrong. How much should I rebuke them? Should I say, I don't think you should be having this conversation? It's inappropriate. So there's an argument, of course there's an argument, between three of the greatest sages, Rav, Shmuel, and Rabbi Yochanan. One says you have to rebuke them till they hit you. The other one says you have to rebuke them till they curse you. The other one says you have to rebuke them till they admonish you. Haka, klala, nazifa. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says, I don't understand, I never saw such a question by any other mitzvah. If I'm putting on tefillin and somebody's cursing me, I stop putting on tefillin because they're cursing me? If somebody starts saying, don't do it, you're putting on tefillin in the airport, there's not a place to put on tefillin. I'm exempt from tefillin? You have to do a mitzvah. You have to do a mitzvah. I mean, if it's pikuach nefesh, then you got to save your life. But if somebody's cursing me or screaming at me, fine, so go to therapy. I mean, what do you want? I'm not bothering you. Why is this mitzvah different? They're asking, if somebody is upset at you and admonishing you, you're not mechuyev in the mitzvah. Why? So Rabbi Yaakov says, Parsha, because the mitzvah of teichecha is not about you admonishing them. It's about them being touched. It's about them being transformed. It's about them being moved. If they're cursing you and admonishing you, what's the point that you'll go home and say, I'm a righteous person because I made a protest? Thank you. That wasn't the point. And that's why the mitzvah v'chech techichas ha-mesechas and Parshas Doshim between mitzvahs bein adam lachaver and not mitzvahs bein adam lamakam. Usually you would think it's a mitzvah between a person and God. It's not. It's a mitzvah between a person and another person. In other words, it's about the benefit of the other human being, not about me telling myself that I am a righteous, holy individual and therefore I don't stand for injustice. Where do we learn that? From Yaakov. Yaakov admonished them. He felt that they were being disloyal to the people paying their salary because they have to put in a full-time job. And if you're in an office and people are taking a lunch break, not for an hour, but for 4.5 hours, and the rest of the time they're on their phone or on their internet, Yaakov says somebody's paying you a salary. And even if you're working for yourself, the animals need different type of treatment. That's teichecha. So Rabbi Yaakov says, but he started off, Acha, you're my brothers. You're my brother, you're my sister, you're my friend, you like me. Now it's a different type of conversation. It has a different energy. And it's so true in relationships. When a person is not experiencing their closeness to their spouse or to their children or to their siblings or anyone else, to a friend, a family, and I'm rebuking because I'm angry and I'm upset, at best it's useless, but very often it's counterproductive. It creates less trust, it creates more distance, and therefore not only will it not help people change, but sometimes on the contrary, it makes them feel more distance, and therefore they dig in to their old patterns and behaviors, which for whatever reason was protecting them and was their own survival instinct. That's why the Baal Shem Tov said, it says, why twice? Rebuke, you should rebuke. He said, because before you rebuke, you have to rebuke somebody else, yourself. You have to have a conversation with yourself. I have to ask, what's happening inside of me? What's happening inside of me? If I'm angry at my son, at my daughter, and I just need to let it out, go let it out somewhere else. Go to the gym, find a tire, or you can go to your garage, take a bat, and you can punch the tire 390,000 times if needed. If you need 390 million times, even better exercise. So first of all, the exercise and the dopamine and the adrenaline and the serotonin, all that will already make you into a better, into a better mood. But very often we say, no, I have to teach this person a lesson. I have to. I am now in survival mode. My amygdala is running the show, and when the amygdala runs the show, I will usually not be able to be in a place of connection and attachment. And it makes sense. We get very, very anxious. I was just triggered by this behavior. Like, how could you be so obnoxious? How could you be so rude? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. This mother had a long day. She just finished mopping and sweeping and the laundry. She's about to go to sleep. And that girl comes in 1 o'clock in the morning to the kitchen, opens up the refrigerator and says, there's nothing to eat. Your refrigerator is stocked for the next 3 years. We know that. You already bought food for next Shavuos. You have the cheesecakes frozen in your freezer, the third freezer in the garage. There's nothing to eat. There's nothing to eat, right? It's very natural for a person at some point to implode and explode, right? And shouldn't this person be put in their place? You sleep here in this house for free, okay? I don't charge you, okay? Rent in such a beautiful house is high. Ask the neighbor, okay? I should charge you $4,600 a month for rent. Plus you eat here 24/7. Etc., etc. You have beautiful things to say. And I'm one of the best mothers that ever existed on this planet for you. Etc., etc. We can do that, and a person could say it's justifiable. You always have to ask one question. What I say, is it going to bring more connection or less connection? If somebody comes down 1 a.m, dressed the way they're dressed, there's usually a lot of pain, and there's usually something very deeply eating up in their heart. And the only way to heal it is not by telling them how spoiled they are, but by helping them heal emotionally, which usually comes through a lot of connection. But that takes inner awareness, inner work. No problem. First have a conversation with yourself. What's happening inside? When they heard Yaakov speak to them, they can hear a serenity. They can hear a love. They can hear Achai, my brothers. How do you see it's true? You look anywhere else in Chumash, does it say my brothers? Where people are actually not brothers. So it says in one more place, anybody remembers where it says my brothers? But they're not really brothers. They're not biological brothers. And that is another place where somebody gives very intense musar, and that's Lot in Parshas Vayera. The people of Sodom come and say, take out the guests from the house so we could sodomize them. The word Sodom is sodomize, comes from Sodom, which is pretty evil stuff. And he says, Achai, al na tareyu, my brothers, don't be so evil. He wants to help them. He calls them my brothers again. Cain says, Hashomer achi anoichi, am I my brother's keeper? Yosef will one day say, Es achai anoichi mevakesh, I'm searching for my brothers. His father saw strangers and called them brothers. His own brothers saw Yosef as a stranger. Es achai anoichi mevakesh, I'm searching for my brother. It's also interesting that Yaakov uses this term after his discord with Esau, and he's forced to run away. And then he uses this, and what happens on that journey, and all of his dreams, and all of his own experiences, and all of his own reflections. And the Medrash Tanchuma says that Yaakov running away was a form of exile. This is what it says in Medrash Tanchuma. We once learned it. The Sfasema says that Medrash Tanchuma says, when somebody killed somebody by mistake, they had to go to exile. So he says that Yaakov inadvertently affected Esau's soul because he distanced him. So he was going into exile, he was going into Galus. So now at this well, Yaakov uses this very word, Achai, my brothers. And that transforms everything. So whenever you're communicating with somebody, especially somebody close in your life, this is even strangers. With strangers we know it, but sometimes with a husband, a wife, a child, a sibling, a family member, if I'm in a space of distance, it's going to come out that way. And then usually most people will go into a much deeper place of defensiveness. It's just the way it is. We become defensive. I don't want anybody attacking me. If you come at me with a weapon, I'm going to protect myself. If you come at me with a verbal weapon, I'm also going to protect myself. Even if you say nice words, but I could feel the negativity, and children feel everything, and your husbands are also very sensitive, much more than most men admit, trust me. This idea that women are sensitive and men are not sensitive is like a myth that's like 5,500 years old. I'm still looking for a man who's not sensitive. Show him to me, okay? We're taught you got to be a man, but that makes them more sensitive, not less sensitive. They just have to protect it and hide it a little better. Women are sensitive and men are sensitive, and if you came to the class just to hear that, maybe it's also worth it. They're also sensitive. So, and you're like, not my husband. Yes, your husband. He just learned to put on a bulletproof vest 56 years ago, but he's also very sensitive when nobody's looking. I got an email from him how sensitive he is. Just joking. I don't know who he is. So why am I talking about men being sensitive? Oh, I could say nice words and charming words because I'm a professional and maybe the therapist says, say it this way. But it's not about words, it's about energy. Words are very important, of course, but it's the energy that I exude. So whenever it's a criticism, if it's a criticism, I'm going to defend myself instinctively, not even because I want to. You know, as somebody once said, it's not my psychology that's blocking me, it's my biology that's blocking me. Your body is going to tense up. It's going to become uptight, you'll see. That's what happens. We go into a survival mode. I have to. We become, the muscles, people just become more tight. That's just the way it is. It's like when there's a danger in the room. And for people to really grow, the message needs to go into a very deep place. So in neuroscientific terms, their prefrontal cortex has to be functioning, not their amygdala. The amygdala is the alarm, the fire alarm that sounds when there's danger. And then everything changes. The heartbeat accelerates. I wouldn't say it takes till 26 till the prefrontal starts working. Sometimes it takes till 106 for the prefrontal. And it only works over there in the Olam MS. It's still growing. Till 24, 26, it's still growing and developing, right? But I could be 52 years old and still very little in touch with my prefrontal cortex, much more in touch with my amygdala, especially if I'm used to going into that space, because there is so much emotional or physical danger or psychological danger. So it's really it's inner work to be able to exude that energy of, I'm in a good space actually. I'm not angry at you. I'm not angry at you. I'm not overwhelmed by you. I'm not in an attack mode. I'm not. I'm open. And then the other person can hear that. And slowly, when we can hold that space and relax them, and they feel that compassion, that achai, they can hear it. And then you see the response is a completely different response. Completely different response. They start sharing with Yaakov actually what's really happening in their life. Instead of saying, get out of here, you not, and if not, we will beat you. No, they actually tell him what happens, and then he actually helps them. He's the one who takes off the stone. They're on vacation that day. They don't have to work so hard that day. Now we come to the next step. And the next step, the next step is from a Hasidic discourse by the son of the Tzemach Tzedek known as the Rebbe Maharash, Parshas Vayeitzei Tofresh Chav Ches, that would be Tofresh Chav Ches, 1867, a long time ago. A Maimar, a discourse that explains this whole story on a spiritual level. Meaning the physical story is the physical story, but like every story, it also reflects an internal spiritual story. On this journey of Yaakov Avinu from the Holy Land to Haran, he encounters a well in the field. The well is filled with what's called Mayim Chaim, living water, living spring water. And the reason it's called living is because the subterranean wells, the wells under earth, are constantly flowing and increasing. That's not a cistern where you gather water and the water just remains there like lifeless. But this is water that's completely flowing, like you ever saw a living wellspring. It's called Mayim Chayim. And that's what these Be'eris were. But it's covered, it's obstructed by an Even G'doila, by a huge boulder. And that doesn't give the shepherds access to the water. So when Yaakov says, why don't you continue to work and give your flock to drink? They said, we can't, there's a boulder. And we need to wait, v'nesvu kol ha'adarim. We need to wait till everybody comes, and then we will be able to remove the rock. And then Yaakov does that on his own. That's when he meets Rachel. After he meets Rachel. There's a deeper meaning in this entire story. And that's why the Torah shares this. It's not just a story, Yaakov going and he sees a well and shepherds and it's nice and charming and relaxing. That too, but there's also a deep story, and it's not just a detail in the story, showing his strength or showing that he tells people what to do because he sees what looks like injustice. But the entire story is an essential narrative to the journey of Yaakov. And the explanation in this briefly is, living well water that comes from under the earth seems paradoxical. Because on one hand, it's the freshest water that exists. If you drink water, if you go to the river, you go to the ocean, the water could be very, very salty. If you ever encounter a spring, a well, you drink the water, it has a freshness and a delight and a geschmack that is extraordinary. Even though it comes literally from the earth, you would think it would be so dirty. But it's precisely the opposite. As it travels its way through the earth, it absorbs all the nutrients from all the rocks and all the stones and all the gravel and the earth and the dust, all of the nutrients that are there in the earth. And there are amazing, amazing nutrients this water absorbs. And when it fights its way through the channels, the subterranean channels beneath the earth, it has in it such a power and such an impact and such a freshness. In Yiddish, it's called a geschmack. It's such delightful water. You know, if you're ever hiking and you're parched and you're thirsty and you're tired, and then you come across a well and you drink the water, you know the feeling. Hashoyse mayim litzmai, to hydrate one's thirst. But there's a rock on the well, and it's not always easy to remove the rock. Sometimes the boulder is very big, and they need many of the shepherds and many of the adarim, at least 3. Shloisha, here there was shloisha, but he says everybody has to come together to do it. What does this represent? In the life of every single person, in the essence of every single person, there's a Be'er Mayim Chayim. Be'er, well, is the acronym, it says in Sfarim, the Al-Shach says, Be'er is Biyadcha Afkid Ruchi. Be'er, Biyadcha Afkid Ruchi. Which means in your hands, we say it at night, Kriyashma, in your hands I deposited my Ruach, my spirit. The Be'er, the living well, represents an inner wellspring of inspiration and vitality and animation, and a source of hydration and irrigation and life that exists within every single person. Water, of course, is the essence of life and it's the source of life. That's why they're all here at the well. And the reason it's the source and the essence of life is because without water, nobody and anything could live. In fact, 70% of our cell is made up of water. So around 60 or 70% of our bodies are made up of water. Of course, a fetus develops in the amniotic sac in water. So water is not just a source of life, but much of any living organism, most of it is made up of water. That's the composition of every cell. So water is not just essential, but it's a source of life. Spiritually, every single person has within them their connection to the source of all life, which is Hashem. And that's the inner divine consciousness, the inner divine soul, which is called a Be'er Mayim Chaim, B'yodcha Av Kidruchi. It's my spirit, which is a Chelik Alakam Imal, it's in your hands. It's a divine flow of energy that every single person has inside of them. And in that space, like water, there's freshness, there's vitality, it's delicious, it's geschmack, it's delightful, it's pleasant. And it can always hydrate a parched spirit, which means I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but when I drink that water, when I come in contact with that inner source of vitality and consciousness, the human being is irrigated, is brought to life, because that soul is always alive because it is a continuum from the source of life. And because it's a continuum from the source of life, it's always full of life. It's full of clarity. Like the water, it has clarity to it. It's full of energy, it's full of nutrients. And in that sense, a person is completely connected and in sync with their own flow of life. But there is the Afar, the earth. And it's precisely as the water travels through the earth that it doesn't only get distorted, it becomes even more clear, more fresh, because it travels through the earth. You'll never compare the freshness and delightfulness and even health properties of water in an ocean or a river that's above the earth to well springs that flow below the earth and need to be dug out. And the same is true with the soul. The soul coming down and, so to speak, traveling through the earth, it crystallizes and enhances its depth, its maturity, its power. It gives it a vigor and a power that's even deeper than the soul, the way it's up there, because it's traveling through the earth. It has to fight its way through the earth, so it has a depth and a maturity and a vitality to it that comes precisely because it travels through the earth, which means precisely by the soul coming down into the body and fighting its way through life, and a person being connected to that, the soul has in it such a powerful depth that nothing can block. On the contrary, it uses all the nutrients that it finds in its struggles, not to destroy it, but actually to grow from it. So as this water is passing through the earth, and there's rocks, and there's debris, and there's dust, and there's gravel, and there's everything that's going on, all the earth and all the pebbles, the water continues to flow, and it takes in their nutrients. It grows from the experience. It adds to the water, it doesn't obstruct the water. But we also have a big rock. And the big rock stands al piha be'er. I don't have access to the water. And this is also a truth in life. And this is what Yaakov perceives. As the patriarch of the Jewish people, he perceives this condition. If I could remove the rock, there's such a powerful wellspring of water awaiting me that is incredibly, incredibly amazing. But there's a rock. What do they say? A rock feels no pain, and an island never cries, right? There's a rock. There were two Jewish boys who made a song called I Am a Rock, right? So here we got to change it a little bit. I'm not a rock, but I got a rock. I have a rock. And the rock, he says, is an Even Gdoila. Even Gdoila, it's a big rock. It's like a boulder. It's like a mountain. I can't just push it. It would be nice if I come and push it. When you push a boulder, you get hurt, or it rolls right back. What does that represent? That represents my difficulty to access the Be'er. And every person has that Even. It may have different shapes, different colors, different dimensions, different dispositions. It may have different properties, but the common denominator is that it's an Even Gedola. What does this mean in a person's life? We all develop different instincts, emotions, thoughts, proclivities, desires, and internal responses that keep us here in this world, keep our soul in our bodies. They keep us, at least in their own mind, safe to a certain degree. When we spoke before about when I rebuke somebody, you put on your gear, you say, what do I need now to defend myself? Whenever a person is asking themselves, what do I need to do now to defend myself? I could never listen to anything. You understand that? Even if it's subconscious. Even if it's subconscious. If you start telling me something and my body says, how do I get out of this? How do I answer? What do I need to do? There's no conversation anymore. I'm protecting myself. You're the attacker, I'm the protector. It's not a conversation anymore. So that's where the rock takes over, and it's like there's no access here. There's going to be a rock. What does that mean in a person's life? For some people, it's actually they become a rock. I am a rock. What it means to become a rock is they're not sensitive. They make believe they're not sensitive. The person who's not sensitive has not been created yet in this world. If you have a soul, you're sensitive. If you have a soul, you're sensitive. Sensitive is not a bad word. Sensitive means you feel things. You're connected to things. We sometimes turn sensitive into like this dirty word out of fear. It's like, don't be sensitive. Be tough, be harsh, which is another word of like be detached. Be numb, be emotionless. Now, of course, sensitivity gets everybody into trouble. You know, there's a reason people are not sensitive. I'm not sensitive. I'm more safe. A soul is sensitive. But sensitivity, real sensitivity doesn't mean weakness. Real sensitivity means I'm empathetic. I feel things. I'm connected to things. Connection. Do you know a child who's not sensitive? You never saw that, a child not sensitive? If I haven't changed my baby's pamper in like a day or two, he's not sensitive. If he hasn't nursed in a few hours, not sensitive. Tell a child, don't be sensitive. Stop crying. There's no such a thing. And when we do that to a child, they tell themselves, my sensitivities are horrible. My needs are horrible. Crying is a horrible thing. Showing that I need anything may be a terrifying thing and will only make me feel stupid in a world that is very, very judgmental of this, and therefore, of course, I'm not sensitive. So everybody has to ask themselves, what are the rocks? What are the boulders that I developed in my life in order to protect me from my own water? At some point, the boulder is serving you well. There's a reason they put the rock on the well. You know why? If there was no rock, everybody would just come and drink the water, and there was no water left. When the shepherds need the water, there's a reason there's a rock. There's a reason we put a rock on our heart. There's a reason for it. In a funny way, we're trying to protect the water. We don't want the water to be depleted. These are all the protectors that are created, defenders and protectors, in order to guard the water. The problem is, the rock is so good, the protector is so good, I have no access. The security, you know when you put security on your computer or on your email, whatever it is, then you forget your password? And you do such a complicated password, not only the world can't get into your computer, you can't get into your computer. And now you ask your 15-year-old genius, who of course was diagnosed with ADHD and can't make it in any yeshiva, and he breaks your code in like 9.5 seconds, and that's the stupidest kid in the whole school. Our passwords are so good, we don't know how to get into it. The protectors, the rocks are there for a reason. The rocks are not a mistake. The animal soul and the body's purpose is to protect the divine soul like a rock. But what happens is, I don't know the limits anymore. The protection becomes so powerful, I don't have access. I don't know the password. Nobody knows the password. I also don't know the password.
And it's that ADHD kid who gets through our rock.
Very good. Yes. Sometimes precisely the ADHD kid gets through the rock. They say that the Baal Shem Tov once asked his Gabbai, one of his students, to go to the marketplace and bring together all the Ganovim. In the shtetl, there were Jews who were known, unfortunately, as Ganovim, thieves, to bring them together. And the Baal Shem Tov, they all came, and Baal Shem Tov said, I want you to daven with me. And they went to the shul, and they were davening, they were praying. They were saying to him, and after a while he said, beautiful, job done, move on. So somebody said, I don't understand. These are the people you asked to daven with you? And you know what the Baal Shem Tov said? Something unbelievable. He said there was a particular issue that that I was seeing, and the gates in heaven were locked. Ganovim know how to break gates. Thieves know how to break gates. So I had to bring them to daven with me. And they did it well. Now you look at this funny story. What does that have to do with it? He was saying something very deep. The Ganev, may be a thief and may be doing the wrong thing. But like that child, there's a quality there that is powerful. The quality that's powerful may be misused. It may be harnessed in the wrong directions, but they have a power. They know how to break gates. They know how to not take no for an answer. They don't say, this is it, and we got to go back home. No, there's a gate, break it. Jump over it, find the path. My father told me, those who grew up in Brooklyn, remember there was Tashlich in the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. For many years, Jews would go to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, a beautiful, beautiful pond over there with fish. Still there on Eastern Parkway near Grand Army Plaza and the public library over there, the Brooklyn Jewish Museum. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe would walk there Rosh Hashanah for Tashlich every year from Eastern Parkway, 770 Eastern Parkway to Botanical Gardens. I don't know, a half an hour walk, 25-minute walk, beautiful walk Rosh Hashanah. In those days, there were, tens of thousands of Jews lived all till Bedford-Stuyvesant was all Jewish before the mass migration. So thousands of Jews were on the streets for Rosh Hashanah, religious Jews, secular Jews, and the Rebbe would go to Tashlich with like hundreds of people. It was a beautiful sight. So in 1956, it was pouring rain, but not just pouring, like those rainfalls, those downpours that are just like a mamash flood. So the guard in the botanical gardens, the person sitting there didn't think that any normal human being is going to come visit the garden in this weather. He didn't know about the Hasidim. I didn't know about the Chabad Hasidim, certainly. So he left. He locked up. He left. 5 o'clock, the Rebbe comes with hundreds of people to the gates of the botanical gardens, and they're locked. There's no tashlich. No, so what do you do? And the Rebbe wasn't a youngster. He gave his siddur to somebody and he started to climb. He climbed the gate, he went over, he jumped down. Hundreds of people climbed over the gate. They got their Rosh Hashanah exercise, they did tashlich, and they came back. soaked. My father was there. So it's a perspective in life. Everybody has gates. There's gates. What do I do with them? Everybody is facing a rock. And we develop these stones, and the reason we develop them is not because we're evil, it's to protect ourselves. And this is true about everything, like we spoke many times. If you're suffering or your children are suffering from social anxiety, from depression, from numbness, when we're feeling blah, when we're feeling detached, we're feeling offline, numb, or even angry, jealous, animosity, raging emotions. These are all rocks that are obstructing the flow of my soul, the flow of your soul. Your soul is not jealous. Your soul is not angry. Your soul is not competing with anybody. Your soul is not numb. Your soul is not detached. Your soul is not dead, Khalila. Your soul is alive. Your soul is divine. God is not dead. Your soul is not dead. You're aligned with the source. Somebody told me the other day that they heard something from somebody and they got jealous. They got jealous. And then they explained it to them. They explained to me something very profound. They said, and it's so true. Jealousy always means I need I compare myself to you, and then I'm like, I want it. Like you're taking it from me. Why can I feel that? Only because I'm not in I'm not in my flow. If I'm aligned with my source of life, nobody could take anything from anybody. Imagine, the sun emits how many rays come out from the sun? Anybody knows? A little more than 1 million, right? So imagine one ray gets jealous of another ray. And it's like, stop shining, I'm shining. The sun has enough rays for everybody. When you're shining your ray, you're never jealous from anybody because nobody can tap into your energy. You can't tap into anybody's. It's your energy. God is infinite. If the sun has so many rays, how many rays come from Hashem? So you're one ray and you're another ray, and they never compete with each other. They can't. And if I'm starting to feel, but you have this, but you have this, it means not that I'm jealous of you. It means that I don't know me. It means that people think they're jealous of something. They're not jealous of them. They don't know themselves. I'm not in touch with my own energy, so I need to feed off your energy, your energy, your energy. Come, give me your energy. You You're divine. You don't need anybody's energy. You have a well that is connected to the source of life. And the source of life is non-depletable. It just doesn't get depleted. So whenever I'm connected with my well, there is a confidence, there's a clarity, there's a depth, and there's a creativity that never ceases. But we put up rocks. We put up defenders. And they become very, very powerful to the point that I don't know how to access it. And a person needs to be aware of this and ask, what does my stone look like? What does my rock look like? Like I told you, sometimes it's becoming blah. Being blah. Sometimes it's getting lazy. We think laziness. What is laziness? Laziness is protecting something. It's a funny thing. We think laziness is just stop being lazy. There's a reason you're being lazy. I promise you. Nobody's lazy by nature. The soul is not lazy. Soul is full of life. You know that when you're happy, you're not lazy. You know when your child is happy, he's not lazy. They told you that this 14-year-old is lazy. He's lazy like I'm a squirrel. Okay, just give him something exciting. I was giving here a speech the other Shabbos here. So there was a group from a yeshiva, and it's known as an ADHD yeshiva. Like that's its second name, so to speak. So, I'm not the shortest speaker in the world, let's put it that way. Unfortunately, I'm not like the 6-minute sermon rabbi. There are such rabbis, they get paid extra, and it's a good thing. It's a good service to Klal Yisrael. It's hard for me. So I gave a pretty long speech that Shabbos next door here. This kid was sitting right in front of me and staring and listening, and he was like in tune. He comes over to me and he says, you spoke for an hour. You could have gone for another 7. I said, but I don't understand. I know you. I know your mother, your father. You were diagnosed as the quintessential ADD, ADHD poster boy in all of the United States of America. You were that kid. He looks at me, he laughs. He says, no, people don't understand. They think that people like me can't listen to speeches. No, we can't listen to boring speeches. If it's a boring speech, even 12 seconds, I'm dead, I'm done. Kill me first. Kill me first. He says, but if somebody touches the spot, I could sit for 12 hours. If somebody touches the spot, I could sit for 12 hours. That's the question. Are you touching the spot? If my spot is touched, if my Be'er Mayim Chaim is touched, I'm not lazy. I'm not lazy. Laziness is a great protector. Exhaustion. I slept last night. Why am I exhausted? You're not. It's a protector. If I'm exhausted, I don't have to take risks. I don't have to do anything. I won't make mistakes. If I'm a perfectionist, what's the best thing to be? Always exhausted, tired, and hungry. If I'm exhausted, tired, and hungry, I won't make mistakes. I won't have to. The body is trying to protect you. It's a rock that's trying to protect you so that nobody steals the water. The same is true with anger, aggression, lack of calmness, anxiety. When somebody has social anxiety, what is it? Do you think it's just that they're sick, they're weird? Shame them out of it? It doesn't work that way. The body is sensing danger. Maybe for this person, a lot of people represent something that's dangerous. You have to understand that. And the body is saying this is a dangerous place. And if it's a dangerous place, be anxious. Yeah, be anxious. You got to be anxious here. There's lions in the room. And then you say, it's a nice wedding. She's such a nice lady. Like, what do you want? Your body doesn't care if she's a nice lady. There is danger for your body. There is danger with a lot of people. Why? Maybe because deep down I feel that I'm stupid, I'm nerdy, I'm weird. And therefore, if I say anything wrong, my true weirdness is going to come out. So I have to protect myself. Those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, it's fine. Those of you who understand what I'm talking about, unfortunately, you know what I'm talking about. And we all develop all these avonim, all these stones and all these rocks that grow more and more. Again, originally they're there to protect me. At the end, they become monsters and I don't know the password to go into my own soul anymore. They become living entities and now suddenly the rock takes over. And that's when they tell the Yaakov and they say, we can't do this on our own. We need kol ha'adarim. We need everybody together. And what this means is, they say shloisha edreit sign. There were 3 flocks of sheep. So Rabbi Avraham HaMalach, the son of the Maggid of Mezrich, explains these are the 3 main emotions: Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. Chesed is kindness, love. Gevura is discipline, boundary, strength. Tiferes is midas harachamim, compassion, empathy. And it's 3 different attitudes in life. Love is the feeling of connection and attachment. Gvura is maintaining boundaries and restrictions. There's limits. And they're very, very different emotions. In fact, the three patriarchs represented these three, Avram, Yitzchak, and then Yaakov was Tiferes, which means beauty, harmony. It's a synthesis of the first two. Because each one has a different, tremendous gift, but also can have a tremendous challenge. So, for example, love recognizes the oneness in everybody. There's people who are just their lovers, you know. There's even those who said, all you need is love. And they're just lovers. They see goodness everywhere. They see the world as oneness. This was Avram Avinu. He came to the world and he said, we're all brothers, we're all sisters, we have one creator, we're all derivatives of one source of infinite consciousness. Let's stop the fighting, let's stop the fragmentation. That's why Avram changed the world with his love. The challenge of that is, and this is where Yitzchak come in, and Yitzchak was Midas Hadin. And Yitzchak Avinu's message was, it's true, of course my father is right. But whenever you say that, you also have to be able to understand that parasites can feed off that. Right? When you speak about progressiveness and openness and love and acceptance, sometimes ridiculous, insane, and sometimes even immoral, promiscuous, and evil behavior can feed off it. So Yitzchak says, no, if we want that love to succeed, we need to have boundaries. We have to say, you know, this is proper, this is inappropriate, this is good, this is not good. Avram was even happy if Yishmael becomes his heir because Avram saw the real goodness in everything. Sarah understood that ultimately it's going to undermine itself. And the reason it undermines itself is because, unfortunately, we live in a world where toxicity can feed off very, very powerful love. Like somebody has an open heart, for example, right? And they can be used very badly. They can be manipulated. They can be exploited. They have an open heart. They can get into relationships that are toxic and poisonous and destructive. So Avram Avinu was holy, but people could feed off it. So Yitzchak is a very different response. Yitzchak is very discerning. Yitzchak is about discernment, meticulousness, precision. He's very sensitive to detail. The challenge with Gvura is, what's the challenge? It could become very judgmental. I can go into my cocoon and become very differentiated, like very distant. It becomes extremely judgmental. And sometimes externals become more important than internals. You know, they say Rabbi Aryeh Levin was a tzaddik of Yerushalayim, and he was a short man. And he was walking in Yerushalayim, and he saw an old student of his walking towards him, and he was very excited. He hasn't seen him in many years, but this person has left Yiddishkeit. So he didn't feel comfortable meeting his old Rebbe, so he crossed the street. Rabbi Aryeh Levin was innocent. He didn't understand that he's trying to run away from him, so he pursued him. He crossed the street and chased up to him, so he couldn't avoid him. So he looks at him and he says, why are you running away from me? I don't understand. I'm your teacher. Why are you running away from me? So he said, I'll be honest with you. Enli kippah. Enli, I don't have a yarmulke anymore. I was ashamed. It was awkward for me to meet you. So therefore I crossed the street. So they say he looked at him and he says, his student was a tall fellow. He says, look at me. I'm a short guy. I only see up to your heart. I only see up to your heart. That's a very, very powerful tool. So the problem is, a challenge with Gvura is, this is appropriate, this is inappropriate, and it can become very, very judgmental. You know, you don't fit in exactly my community, my box, my style, my dimension. And therefore, they say, V'nesfu kol ha'adarim. Whenever you want to remove the rock, if it's just one midah, it's too powerful, the resistance is too powerful. Because love can be healthy and love can be unhealthy. Discipline can be very healthy and it can be very unhealthy. Gvura, restrictions, discernment is critical, but it can also be very distancing. So one midah alone, one of the flocks of sheep alone, one of the three alone can't remove the rock. When a person has a combination, they understand, of course, love is the basis, but I also have to be able to ask, how are my boundaries? Is it leaking? Is it feeding unproductive places? It's a combination of chesed, gvura, all the flock together, all the three together, could then remove the rock. But when Yaakov comes, he does it himself. How does Yaakov do it himself? Yaakov was a synthesis of chesed and gvura. It's because he was a synthesis, he had all three. So therefore Yaakov could do it himself. And besides that, Yaakov is midas harachamim. Yaakov represents the attribute of compassion, of empathy, which is also midas ha'emes, titein emes leYaakov. Why is that the key to remove the rock? It's the reason why Yaakov begins the conversation with the word achai, my brothers. Because compassion and empathy is the greatest force that removes the boulders, always. And that's why Yaakov comes himself and he removes the boulder and everybody could drink. They have access to the Be'er Mayim Chaim. Not just for himself and for Rachel and for Lavan's flock, but also all the other flock. Because whenever anybody removes boulders, they're not only doing it for themselves, they're doing it also for the whole world. When you manage to remove a boulder in your life, everyone has more access to their own water. That's why inner work is so important. And people say, nah, it's selfish. I don't have time to work on myself. I'm busy with the whole world. Sometimes the greatest way to help the whole world is, if I remove my own inner boulder, everybody has access to water. Not only I have access to water, that also is a good thing. But you give more people access to their own water and to the Be'er Mayim Chaim from which everybody drinks, which is the source. So they say, it's selfish, I'm doing inner work. It's not. It's the other way around. Like everything, everything could become selfish, everything could become a trap. That's why we need a combination. You have to see where the chesed is and where the gvura is and where the tiferes is. Because whenever a person goes to one extreme, the rock will resist. That's why a person always has to have the balance of understanding that serving God is the ability to transcend my ego and any trap, and therefore I am flexible to move into different modalities and say, yeah, maybe I need help with this quality because the other quality, which may be good, is overtaking me and I need a little bit more of the other quality. So therefore what happens is when Yaakov Avinu removes it, everybody has access to it. When we remove our own boulders, people get more access to their own water. It's like a chess game. If I move a piece, you're forced to move your piece. If not, it's going to be checkmate. In relationships, sometimes we always wonder, how can I change this one? How can I change my kids? How can I change my husband? How can I change my wife? How can I change my mother-in-law? Not me, I don't have to change my mother-in-law. How can I change my father? I change this one, that one, that one. You have your side of the chess game. Why don't you move around your pieces and everybody will start, it's like in a dance. You start dancing in a different position and everybody has to change their choreography, their positions. So the more I could remove my boulder, it gives everybody access to new awareness. But Yaakov is the one who can do it alone because of the power of Midas HaRachamim. What's the power of compassion? The power of compassion is this precise quality that we're talking about of understanding what the rock is. And here you see an interesting thing. It says in Medrash, Rabbi, on this Parsha, Even ze Yetzahara. The Evan is the Yetzer Hara. And what's the funny thing? The funny thing is they tell Yaakov, we come together, we remove the rock. What else happens is we give the flock water to drink, and then the Torah says, Vehishivu es ha'evan al pi ha'belim. They bring back the rock. They take it away and then they bring it back. I said if it's the Yetzer Hara, don't bring it back. And here we see the subtle paradox of what a Yetzer Hara really is. And that's why Yaakov's compassion is so important. The rock is not evil. If the rock was evil, they wouldn't bring it back. The Yetzer Hara itself is also not evil. We say, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzarecha. Love God with your Yetzer Hara. One of the Mekabalim, Rabbi Avram Abulefia, says, Yud Kei Vav Kei is acronym, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yetzer HaTov v'Yetzer Hara. Hashem's name, really? You couldn't find a better acronym for God's name? Yetzer HaTov v'Yetzer Hara? Come on. As they say in English, give me a break. That's far-fetched. It's far-fetched when we don't understand what the Yetzer Hara is. The Yetzer Hara is called the evil inclination because, like the rock, the password is so good that you don't know how to get into your computer. I like my metaphor. Forgive me for coming back to it. It's just a great metaphor. The Yetzer Hara did such a good job protecting you, you don't have access to your own house. I don't have access to my soul. I'm sensing something, I'm anxious. I'm sensing something else, I'm angry. I'm sensing something else, I'm jealous. I'm sensing something else, I shut down. I'm sensing something else, I detached, I gaslight, I stonewall, I drift away. Anybody knows these emotions? I get lazy, tired, exhausted, depressed, lonely, victimized, aggressive. Of course, we can do the fight, flight, fawn, freeze. I love the freeze, because it doesn't look lethal, but it's worse than everyone. There's fight, boom. There's flight, and then there's like freeze. Statue. I'm a museum, actually. People pay money to come to museums because everybody's frozen. Terach made a business of selling statues. What do you think it means? It means frozen people. freeze state, dorsal. It's called dorsal. Frozen. It's a great strategy. Animals, sometimes gazelles, if they're being chased by a lioness, one of their strategies, if they can't run away, you know what they do? They freeze. Because the predators are not used to animals being frozen. So it's like a strange thing. They look at it, and sometimes they get away with it. They literally survive. There's a reason we freeze. Your Yetzer Hara didn't become a Yetzer Hara that's jealous and angry and obnoxious and rude and self-centered overnight. These are mechanisms that we develop in order to protect ourselves in a very harsh world. How do I even begin to remove these rocks? Yaakov Avinu, compassion. Can I have empathy for all these voices that developed inside of me that in their own mind they're trying to protect me? That's what they're doing. Can you have compassion? Wow, look what I just had to do in order not to feel. I had for many years a challenge personally. I still have it, a little less, but it's a big challenge. That very often, in the middle of the day, I get blah. You know how you spell blah? I don't know. It's just a blah. I don't even know if you spell it. B-L-A-H, right? Probably with 3 dots like ad infinitum, the pi. And blah is an interesting feeling because it's not like bad. It's not like bad. It's like blah. You have anybody here who has that? You're just like blah. You're not angry, it's not negative, you can't call it depression, it's not like you're going to start taking, it's just blah. And somebody once said, ask your blahness, what is it trying to protect you from? What is it afraid you're going to feel if you're not blah? If you're not blah, you're going to feel something. What is it afraid of showing you? What is it afraid that you're going to feel? If you're going to feel alive and not blah, it's frightened from that emotion. It was such a powerful awareness. Like the blah is not an entity in and of itself. It's not this deity. It's not this infinite God. It's a rock. It's a stone that came to protect the water. But now it's wreaking havoc because I have no access to the water. And this is a moment of stillness. It's a moment of inwardness. It's a moment of curiosity, of inquisitiveness. With every trigger that happens, when somebody's triggering you, don't start giving musar. Learn from Yaakov. Can you get to a place of my brother? How are you going to get there? You're going to have to find your own confidence, your own calmness. No, you're triggering me. You're triggering me. You're triggering me. Can you find your own calmness? How are you going to find your own calmness? Only in your own water. I can't find it in anybody else's water. You fixing your behavior will just be like Tylenol. Maybe for a few minutes the headache will go away. It's because the house is going to look good. It's not going to be the real issue. Even if everybody could be whipped into shape like we love doing with our little kids. And everything is looking good. They say you can come into 2 classrooms. Sometimes you go to different schools. One classroom, everything is organized beautifully. It's perfect. Every kid is behaving like a boot soldier. Sometimes you come into another classroom, it looks like there's chaos. But you always have to know, where are the children actually being nurtured and attuned? Sometimes everybody behaving beautifully is not such a good sign. Because how much repression has to happen? On the other hand, you don't want chaos. Discipline is a good thing. But discipline comes when there's always emotional attunement. Like, what is really happening in the life of this person? I don't care. The soul is not afraid of contrasting voices. One of our protectors is we're afraid of chaos. We're afraid of different voices in our bodies taking over and going crazy. So therefore we shut everything down so that everything looks good. The only problem is it's a beautiful well with a rock. It always looks good because nobody has access to anything. It's like a portrait on the wall. You have a beautiful portrait on the wall that you paid a lot of money for. It's a painting, it's a beautiful painting. The beauty of it is it never changes. It doesn't go through moods, it doesn't go through cycles, it's always perfect. The problem is? It's dead. It's dead. A living person is not that way. You're not a portrait. Don't be afraid of the inner contrasts in your psyche. They're there. Can you look at them? Can you hold space for them? Can you have compassion for them? Can you even watch them? The blondness or any other emotion shuts them down. Go down, go down. And what happens? The whole water gets shut down. It's like if there's a leak in the kitchen. You don't want it to leak. So what do? You go to the water source and you shut the water. But now you can't take a shower. You can't drink. You can't wash anything. You got rid of the leak. But you also got rid of all the other water. When we shut the water source, all the water shuts down. That's why people who don't know how to cry, how are they supposed to laugh? People who can't feel pain, how are they supposed to feel joy? People who can't feel grief, how can they feel alive? You say, but the grief is too deep. I couldn't feel anymore. I get it. So we put a rock there. We put a rock and we stop feeling. And we just can't feel. And we just know, put one foot ahead of another foot and show up to life. And then we're guilted and shamed that this is what God wants. And who cares about your emotions? But what we need more than anything else is life, living, connection, relationship, oneness, attachment. I can't go into redemption to a wedding with Hashem when 90% of my heart is on lockdown. What am I even going to give my kids if I can't show up with joyful presence to life? All I can do is shut myself down and therefore shut other people down. And most people are doing this instinctively. We're not doing this consciously. Everybody means well. People really, really mean well. This is an invitation. Yaakov is saying, with compassion and empathy, can I look in and say, wow, now I talk to my blondness. It's a little weird. I give it a hug, and I'm like, wow, I'm so sorry that your only response to life now is that you have to become blah. I am so sorry. What are you afraid of? That you need to make me feel blah. And of course, the blondness doesn't trust me yet, because I didn't say my brother. That was my mistake. So the blondness says, oh yeah, why with your philosophy? You think you're going to be smarter than me. You're blah, 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 blah. And he goes more. Like in an arm wrestle, when you're losing, you go more. So that makes me more blah. The heart shuts down like a little more. And it's very easy just to become blah. Like to take it seriously. No, this guy is a boulder. He's there to be moved. But he's afraid. He's very, very afraid. Blondness is a good protector. It's a great, great protector for not feeling certain stuff, especially if you're sensitive. And I happen to be a sensitive guy. I'm one of the men who's sensitive. There's 5 of them in the world, and maybe one of them in Monsey, 2 maybe. So me and your husband. Your father-in-law is also a little sensitive, and your brother may also be sensitive. But that's it, nobody else. Your brother-in-law? No. That's why your sister's so happy. I'm just joking. Forgive my humor. You understand? I could call to my blonde and say, blondness, you're my brother. I know you're here to protect me, and I'm sorry. But after a while, he's going to trust me with compassion. If I shame him and say, oh, you have to. I could say I have to, and I'll do the right thing. But internally, there's a deadness. There's no life. That's Yaakov Avinu's power with midas harachamim. Vayogela sa'even malpia be'er. But you know what happens afterwards? They bring back the stone. Because we all need to protect our souls. Protections are not bad. The Yetzer Hara is not essentially evil. The Yetzer Hara is the animal consciousness that's trying to keep you alive. It tells me you have to go to sleep now. I have sensory integration. It says you have sensory integration. When I'm in a place with a lot of people and loud noises, I shut down a little bit. It says you need to protect yourself. There's a lot of energy. Some people don't care. They go to places. There's a lot of energy and they come to life. You know what I mean? They love it. Some people, there's a lot of energy. They shut down for a year. Yeah, there's protectors that are not bad. Now you need to eat. You need to sleep. You need to take a walk. You need fresh air. You need exercise. You need to take care of whatever it is. The Yetzer Hara essentially is the animal consciousness that's there to protect the divine soul. It's responsible for all the biological functions. And yes, there's a car coming. Be careful. Yes, there are bears in the forest. Yeah, be careful. Nothing wrong. Your amygdala should sometimes be on alert. When soldiers are in a war zone in Gaza or Lebanon, of course they're in a war zone. Of course their bodies have to be on alert. They can't just say, let's close our eyes and meditate. You have an enemy that wants to kill you. The challenge is, even in peaceful times, I lost access. That's what PTSD looks like. I don't have access to my own soul. That's where the tragedy is. The stone is important to protect the water. Everybody needs boundaries. I need to know what I eat, what I don't eat, what comes out of my mouth, what doesn't come out of my mouth, what goes into my system, what doesn't go into my system, what goes into my house, what doesn't go into my house, what goes into my bedroom, what doesn't go into my bedroom, when I have a phone, when I have no phone. These are all vital protectors in life. We also need to be able to have boundaries and say, this is toxic, this is poisonous, this is for me, this is not for me. So the animal consciousness is really here to help the soul live in a physical world. That's why you put the stone back. That's why we say in the Pasuk, B'chol drachecha da'ehu. In all your ways you should know him. Da'ehu is from the word intimacy. Va'adam yada eschava. In all your ways you can have intimacy with him. But all your ways, this Yetzer Hara doesn't have to be evil. It's not evil. It could become monstrous. And now finally in conclusion, and here we come to the last point and bring it together. And this is going to be in your last source. And here we end off with this little story. And that is that once the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, he would be the Baal Kaira Shabbos and Shul. He would read the Torah. He lived in a city called Liozna in Belarus. Liozna, a little town. And he was reading Parshas Vayeitzei, this week's Parsha. And they came to this story. He came to read this story. And what happens? Yaakov Avinu says, my brothers, where you from? And they say, we're from Haran. And he says, do you know Lavan, the son of Nachar? And they say, Yadanu. And what happens is, when he's reading the Parshas, he says, Achai me'ayin atem, where you from? They say, we're from Haran. Vayoyim, and he says, Hayidatem es Lavan. Yaakov says, do you know who Lavan is? And when the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, finished these words, suddenly they saw that he was not there. He went into ecstasy. And he started, which was not unusual, and he started to roll on the ground. Literally started to roll on the ground for close to a half an hour. From ecstasy, it was just like an out-of-body experience. The complete dveikus. And nobody knew why. Like, what did he say? Yaakov asked him, do you know Lavan? Like, okay. Do you know Lavan? And after a half an hour, he was calm, he stood up, and he continued. Vayoimru Yadanu. And they said, we know Lavan. We know Lavan. And then he says, is he at peace? And they say he's at peace. And Rachel approaches with the flock. So Hasidim was sitting after Shabbos trying to figure out what just happened. So somebody opened up a Medrash Rabbah on these words. The Medrash Rabbah says this, and then they understood that this is probably what transpired in the holy soul of the Baal HaTanya. I want to read with you this Medrash because it's very, very special and moving and relevant to our times. And just you see how many dimensions there are when you read a pasuk. Says the Medrash, Bereshis Rabbah Parsha Vayemelem Yaakov Achai. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Posar Kroya Begolus. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina explained that this verse is talking about exile. Vayemelem Yaakov comes to the shepherds. He's not just talking to shepherds, he's talking to his future children. And he says, brothers, you're my brothers, where are you from? And they say, Mecharan Anachnu, we're from Haran. Remember, Yaakov left the Holy Land and he was going into exile for 22 years. So he says, where are you from? Where did I come? Where did I catch you? They said, Mecharon. Mecharoinai shalakadosh baruch hu anu barchem. We are fleeing the wrath of the divine. Mecharon, we come from Charan. Charan from the word charoin, like v'chara. Wrath, anger. It's very, very intense, very powerful energy of wrath, of ire, I-R-E. That's where we're coming from. And what Yaakov hears in them is this very, very profound experience that we're in galus, we're in exile. Vayomer lehem, so he says, Hayedaitem es Lavan ben Nachar. I know that you're in Haran, but I want to know, do you know Lavan? And we know, as I said before, das, whenever it says in Tanakh das, it means connection. V'ha'adam yada es Chava. It doesn't only mean Adam got a resume of Chava. From getting a resume, you don't have 3 children. Cain, two children. V'adam yada es Chava means Adam connected to Chava. Hayedatem es Lavan. Do you know Lavan? Do you have das? Says the Medrash, Hayedatem es mishu asid lelabein avoyneisechem kashalak. You can start crying. Do you know the one who's going to cleanse all your negativity, all your challenges, is going to cleanse them and make them white as snow? The word Lavan means white. So they're saying we're coming from Haran. We feel the wrath. We feel the upsetness. He says, I know, but do you have a relationship with Lavan? Do you have a relationship with your whiteness? Do you know the one who's going to whiten you, who's going to bleach you, where everything in you is going to be as white as snow? And what do they say? Yadanu, we do know about that. Vayomer lehem, he says, Hashalom loy. Is he at peace? Do you know if he's at peace? You're suffering, he's also suffering. Vayomru, and they said, Shalom, he is at peace. We're at peace. So Yaakov says, Be'ezes chus, how did you do that? And they answer, V'hine Rachel bitay abba amatzayin. This is Rachel. Hadu adiksiv, Kayamar Hashem, Kol berama nishma, Nehi bechi samrurim, Rachel mevaka al baneh, Me'ana le'inachim, Kayamar Hashem, Bini koilech mibechiv yeshtikva lacharisech. It's because of Rachel's tears, Rachel's depth, Rachel's sensitivity. Mini koilech mibechi, he says, stop crying, Rachel. As long as Rachel bitay ba'im atzoin. And what happens then? Yaakov kisses Rachel and he weeps. What's the meaning of this? So the Balatanya says, this is in Tanya chapter 46, says something unbelievable. Yaakov is midas harachamim. Yaakov is compassion. Rachel is Knesset Yisrael. Rachel represents the Jewish people. And by the way, Rachel means, you know what the word Rachel means? Sheep, a ewe. So the sheep that we're talking about is also not just the animal sheep, it's the Rachel sheep also. Yaakov gives them to drink, and Rachel is the sheep as well, as a person, as the Jewish people, Knesset Yisrael. And Yaakov understands that midas harachamim. Vayisa eskoila, Yaakov lifts up his voice and he weeps. He has tears for Knesset Yisrael. And he brings in the intimacy of Hashem, Lavan, with Rachel, into Rachel. In other words, is dapkus rucha berucha, a kiss represents the connection of spirits, that his inner ruach, which is Yaakov Avinu known as midas harachamim of Atzilus, the rachamim of the Shechina, connects with Rachel, which is the Shechina, vayefk, and he sobs, he weeps. This is midas harachamim playing itself out. And because of this sensitivity, this compassion to the true nature of the soul, to the true nature of Rachel, the Jewish people tell him, Hashalom lai. We're taking Charim, we're taking Galas, but there's an inner peace that pervades the Jewish people. Because we know, yes, there's Charoin, but there's also Lavan. And then they understood why when he was reading the Torah and he said, Hayedaitem es Lavan, this was so emotionally powerful. Like, do you know Lavan? Do you have a relationship with Lavan? I know you have a relationship with anger. I know you know Charan. I know we know negative. I know we know how to, buckle down. I know how we know to lock it down. We know this. We have thousands of years of training in hyper alertness and in managing very, very difficult situations that the Jewish people have been through Charan. But he said, but I want to know something else. Hayedaitem Lavan ben Nachar. They also have a relationship with your Lavan. They have a relationship with your whiteness, with your ecstasy, with your purity, with your divine beauty, with your infinite bliss. And the Jewish people say, Yadanu, we do. Have a wonderful week. What does this say? I can't read.
The one that doesn't see just there in the back.
I also want to make a special mention. We're honored today to have Brindy and also Hindi. Hindi, thank you for coming. That's Hindi Markowitz, who also takes a lot of effort for her to come. I want to thank her mother for bringing her. Thank you very much. And Mazel Tov for the Chanukah Sabayis. And as I told you, Hindi, in private, whenever you come, you fill the room with light. And you give us a lot of vision. So thank you. I also want to give Mazel Tov to Mrs. Silverstein on the wedding of her daughter. Shatoivo Mitzlachas, Asach Nachas, and Abinyan Adeyad. Baruch Hashem. That itself is, that's it.
Everybody who's not taking their source sheet, please put it on the email.
Mazel Tov, Abinyan Adeyad.
She attended, I know. Beautiful, I learned so much today. The first is that we started up page on, the opposite position of the Torah before.
Oh. So the Mefarshim asked, some say she was very young. So it was like, she was very young. In Tanya it says that it was Midas Harachamim of Atzilus, invoking compassion and divine intimacy and divine dveikus with Rachel. It's on different levels, yeah, it's a big discussion.
It's not like an upage on Shomer Negia, like people.
You're saying, how can he kiss Rachel?
Right. When people page it, if that was okay.
So nice of you. I have to come to the wedding, by the way.
beautiful.
Oh, you saw her, yeah.
Yeah, I showed it to her.
Yeah. Your cousins?
We're cousins. I'm very good friends.
It was a simple and all about
Such a beautiful wedding.
This was just not a wedding here. When it comes to knowledge,
By the way, when you were saying before about the feeling of emotion, that's somatic therapy, and that's why it's
that's
so
totally
popular today.
IFS. I'm doing
Yeah,
a training
yeah,
on
yeah.
that now. It's totally in line with that.
Not anymore talking; it's feeling in your body.
Yeah.
You know?
Because what the stone doesn't block ideas, it obstructs embodiment,
Right.
feeling. Like, you know, there's no flow. It's like you could talk ideas,
Feel it, right.
but the experience of it is not there because there's a rock, and it's a detachment, and it's very painful. And the truth is, our generation has been tested with this because we talk about ideas like non-stop, ad nauseum, like talking and talking. I mean, look who's talking. What we talk and talk, you know. But the embodiment of it is just a different experience.
You know
That's the
what's so
rock.
crazy. My daughter's already 4 years, and she's over there. She's coming back, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
And all these times I was like, why can't you tell her anything? And today she's my most loyal, loving daughter. And my mother's like, what did you do? You never told her anything. It's
Powerful.
There's nothing to say. She feels. She just feels it.
Right,
You know?
but she wouldn't understand that.
Nah, you can't.
You cannot, if you don't do the work yourself,
Right.
you just don't understand it, and then by nature you have to judge others who do it because
Right, another daughter
it's
just
weird.
had a baby, and this daughter's the one sitting here NICU with a baby, and she's doing everything. And my daughter's like, what happened? My sister's over there was my biggest rock. I says, this is because she feels that we care about her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mazel tov. Wow, that's incredible. You get through the rock with compassion. The rock is not.
So I was just talking to someone and she was telling me she's struggling to accept compassion. Like that is her.
Yeah, of course. Because when we shame ourselves and guilt ourselves, it makes us do the right thing. That's how we do it to our kids also. Shame them, guilt them. How could you do it? And that's it. Everything is solved. Compassion is the opposite. Compassion is like watching.
How do you remove that? How do you get to the compassion?
The only way we can do any of this is we need a very good support system. We need a good support system. We need people that we can talk to, people that we can be honest with, people that can help us through this, number one. Number two, people sometimes need different healing modalities to help them. They simply need it. They're stuck. Number three, we need time inward. We need time to pray, to daven, to meditate, to sing, to breathe. Breath work could be very helpful. People need time, whether it's exercise, self-nurture, journaling, taking walks, taking hikes, meditation, breath work, prayer, learning. It just brings a person into an inner space of more awareness. It's being protected. It's being in a place where there's more serenity, where there's more honesty, where there's more wholeness. If my energy is always going outwards and I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this, yeah, I may have to do 100 things today, but we need that time. The anxiety hits the compassion.
That's the anxiety.
So so they need to have compassion for the anxiety. We need to have compassion. I have to speak to my anxiety, so to speak, and hold space for it. I'm like, wow, what are you trying to protect me from? You are frightened that if I have compassion, I will die. I get it.
The compassion is the problem. Because any time you talk about anything that has compassion, that's where the anxiety kicks in.
Yeah.
Like the word compassion is the anxiety. And it's like
Can we have compassion for the anxiety? I'm sorry for my stupid question.
right, but as soon as you want to get to the compassion, that's where the anxiety kicks in.
Not get the compassion. Just like look at the anxiety and like, wow. Like watch and not be afraid of it. You know, we are afraid of our anxiety, and it makes sense. So we shame our anxiety into non-existing. We repress it. What if I stop shaming my anxiety? Like my anxiety is really, really a 4-year-old girl or boy who's scared of something. Like, you know, if I go to Six Flags and my little kid doesn't want to go on the roller coaster, it's very scary and he starts crying. He's scared of roller coasters. My anxiety is scared of a roller coaster, whatever a roller coaster is for it. It's frightened of a roller coaster. It's so scared that I'm not going to be perfect. It's so scared I'm going to say the wrong thing. It's so scared that I'm going to feel pain. It's so scared that I'm going to be authentic. It's scared. Like, can I watch my anxiety without judging it, without shaming it? You understand what I'm saying? Makes sense? I know it's harder. It's easier to say than to do.
How do you help someone? I'm trying to help someone
Yeah.
is disassociated.
Ah. So disassociation is one of the biggest protectors. You understand? If I'm disassociated, I'm a wall. I'm good. I'm safe. You don't touch me. You don't get to me. Nothing gets to me. It's a very torturous existence. There's such a big rock. Like, you don't have access. I don't have access to me. Nobody does. God doesn't have access. Nobody has access to me. It's a very, very powerful protector.
Would you talk to it also like the blindness, or?
Yeah. I have that too. We have to hold space for it. It's also frightened. My disassociation is scared. It's doing something. I could watch it. You know, when you start watching it, first of all, you see you're not your disassociation. The eye that observes the disassociation is not disassociated. The eye that absorbs the boredom is not bored. The eye that observes the blondness is not blah. The eye that observes the detachment is not detached. It's observing the detachment and can have compassion. Wow. What is this disassociation guarding me from? Apparently, it must have seen such bad things, or it thinks it's going to be so bad that it feels that if I'm alert, awake, alive, feeling, it's going to be a death sentence. It's a bulletproof vest because there are arrows flying. There are daggers being hurled at my chest. There are bullets about to penetrate my heart, chas v'shalom. And the disassociation is literally the concrete wall, mountain, boulder protecting me. I get it. You know what? Thank you, disassociation. Thank you. You did an amazingly good job for 50 years. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then I could maybe cry with it. And if it really trusts me, it starts crying. It starts crying. It knows the truth. It knows that. Yeah, the part starts crying. It's like it's been doing it from 4 years old, maybe from 2 years old, maybe from 1 year old. And it wants to unburden itself. It doesn't want to be so entangled. It doesn't want to block the flow of water. It's just frightened that if it goes away for a second, all your water will be gone. And in its own mind, it's doing the right thing. But it was so hard. It's torturous to be like that. You know how much work it takes to disassociate? We are all a flow of life. It's a lot of work to disassociate. It's like you always have to cut the wire. It's like this. You have to go like this a whole day. It's very hard. Yeah. When a person is ready to hear this, when we're ready to hear this, it's amazing, amazing work. But we all need support. This is not something like they told Yaakov Avinu. We need each other to remove the rocks.
It's the same valve. That's what you were saying.
It's the same valve. Yeah. When I shut down, I can't be at my child simcha. I mean, I'll be there physically, but I won't be there. I'll be there at the Shabbos table, but I won't be there. I'll be there at the Seder, but I won't be there. I'll be in the kitchen cooking supper. I'll make a very good supper so nobody could complain that they're hungry. But I'm not there. A mother told me, that she cooks a lot and her kids want her to play with them. And she's like, no, I don't have time. And then she says, what am I doing? I'm making dinner for them. And that's my excuse not to connect to them. She realized that her whole cooking is an unbelievable mechanism to remain detached. Like, I'm cooking for my kids. Like, is there something more attached?
That's what you said about the football. Like, how can I be playing football?
How can I be playing football? I have to be this, right? Somebody got to run this house and protect you people and pay your tuition. So it's like I'm busy doing everything to pay your tuition as long as I don't have to connect with you. But it's not a judgment. It's so real. It's like, because there's a safety standing by the stove, making sure the rice doesn't get too sticky, making sure this chicken doesn't burn.
On Amazon for you, because because you need uniforms.
Yeah, I need a uniform for your school. You need a notebook by tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. If not, we're all going to have heart attacks. So for you to have a notebook, we're going to be on Amazon for the next 2 hours. And if you don't have a bookcase in your room by tomorrow night, the house is going to explode. And the main thing is we won't be able to connect. So it's just it's all really the protectors that are trying to protect us and our kids. And opening ourselves up to a different narrative is a lot of avodah. It's deep work. And before Yaakov gets married and has his own children, this is what he has to do. He has to do this work.
Do you ever hear of theta healing? No? No, I'm curious where it comes in with the Torah. It's energy. It's energy. Right.
Energy healing. It's called theta.
Theta. Theta.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff today. Listen. In most of the healing modalities, there's very powerful gems that are all rooted in Torah.
Any time a problem with the Torah perspective in the energy field?
Not that I know of. I mean, why? I mean, if it's helping people.
I did it with Esty, TV training.
Oh,
Yeah,
Stephen Terrell.
yeah, he's amazing.
He's amazing.
Amazing.
So TEB training is a classic example. Somatic, and you're trying to.
We did the IFS training, so I understand the parts. Last week was IFS. The share last week.
Stephen Terrell?
No,
Oh, last week.
Yeah, this time we both do coaching. So
What was last week about?
Last week was with the every time it's amazing.
Oh, Rivka, of course.
The Tanya.
Of course. The tumultuous, yeah, of course, the heart, yeah. So today was a continuation.
We do a lot of trainings together because we help people and we feel like we're coming to like a therapy training.
It's not just idea.
So TEP,
It's from the Torah. It's from the Torah.
yeah, that's the whole. This is the whole Torah. Torah's Chaim. It's a living Torah. It's not a. It's a living wellspring. It's not supposed to be a rock.
It isn't just idea.
The challenge is we have been learning things as ideas for so many years. And it's amazing. Ideas are amazing. I mean, I grew up, I had a very good education. But it was ideas. It's torturous for the soul. Ideas are good as a beginning, you know?
Well, that's Chabad. That's their, right? They're in the, that's what it is.
Chachma bina das, to bring to midos. But always to bring to midos. Without the midos, you're missing the experience. It's not embodied. It's up there. It's good. It's psychoeducation is good. Spiritual education is good. But it's like in TEB, you know, you learn the principles and you don't do the touching. It's like, thank you. Like, what are you doing? The healing happens in the embodiment. Now, there's a reason that we became intellectually detached. Because once you have to embody, you got to work through a lot of blockages. On the mind level, you know, you can avoid the rocks. On a body level, it's all there. We have to face our traumas, and that's not easy.
Right, so that's what she was telling me about the compassion, that she knew that if she can't get to her,
Yeah.
that she can't.
But that itself requires so much compassion. That itself, knowing the resistance. Right. Wow. You're doing amazing work. Thank you for helping people. The TEB my wife loves. She says it's amazing.